My name is Jeff Patterson. This is a story of what happened to me in the summer of 2018. Um, After fighting a disability claim for upwards of 3 years and not knowing what was my primary ailment until July 2017 and exhausting 3 appeals from SSI and suffering major tendon rupture as well as retinal pain as well as peripheral neuropathy in my toes from taking the drug ciprofloxacin, and I believe that I was prescribed it as a preventative measure to keep me quiet and not be able to tell this story. But with that being said, it takes a lot to kill a superhero like me. I've thought long and hard about this story and situation, and understand that my life could be very well in danger, and as well as the lives of my children. And I have very reasonable fear of many aspects on the espionage type level. It's so intense, but I believe it started when my neighbor came to me, Vino, or Marvin, came to me and said, hey Jeff, I know you need money. I've got this machine that I just scored. It's pretty cool. I'm gonna make a lot of money off of it, and if you let me park it at your house, I'll give you a portion of the money. Well, after fighting disability appeal and whatnot, and basically being starving and living in a 2,400 square foot home without any power, I was pretty desperate and didn't think really anything of it. And then the Spectra 8310 showed up at my house, and it came by way of a Chevy truck that I gave to Vino, and a trailer. It's a tandem axle black trailer, and along comes this giant CNC machine. It's like 8x8 cutting table, maybe 10x10 wide, and a whole bunch of steel and really heavy. And the forklift driver that lifted it off the truck was the neighbor from down the street, who was also a member of the church down the street on Watchtower Way. And he helped unload us, and I helped rig the machine, unknowingly that potential radiation was to come. But when the day that we unloaded the machine into my driveway, I saw Daryl Scott Patterson on the corner of Kenneth Oak and Watchtower Avenue, who lived in San Jose, California, and worked for Westinghouse in Sunnyvale. He also worked for Alcohol Beverage Control, and my belief is that he has staged his own death in the year 2008. The machine got dropped off 10 years later, and the day that it was dropped off, he was at the corner of the street watching our move. And he's always never really appreciated me, even though I was his only son. And after my mother died in '94, if she really died, helped raise my sister, who was 9 years younger than I. And I did what I could for my family after the loss of my mother to breast cancer, and some tough times were back then. But my father really seemed to hate my guts all my life. I can remember swimming at Sunset Beach during our end of the year swim team picnic, and literally swimming for my life and not having a lifeguard to whistle or to say, hey, get out of that water, not knowing that the rip toe was really bad. There's a couple times where I really did almost like drown because there was no one watching. And um, I can remember Daryl, my father, would be up at the volleyball court playing with the other kids that were a few years older than me, not paying any attention to me at all. And, 10, 12 years old, that's just something you wouldn't do at the ocean. Amongst that, there's a lot of other instances where there's been questionable things that's happened to me. Um, One being my front tire coming off my bicycle when I was 15 years old and suffering a massive head trauma. I don't know if he was actually the person that loosened my tire on my bike, but I believe that he was upset with me about maybe getting into his locker where he had some pornography or whatever, Playboys or whatnot. And he also seemed to hold some resentment towards me from um, getting caught up with maybe cheating on my mom or whatever. I don't know. I was pretty young and I didn't really understand much of it. But I just know that he was really never there. I never had hugs. I never had I love yous. He never cooked for me. And I can remember the one time that he got mad at me because I bought a London broil steak after we had a barbecue. Bought a new barbecue and I was all proud to try it out. And he got on me for the cost of the meat. Um, I'm not quite sure what his problem was with me. I know I had attention deficit disorder and went to special schools throughout my entire junior high and elementary, and as well as high school. And maybe because I wasn't as book smart as he was, maybe that had something to do with it. But it just feels like there's something kind of major that happened in my young life that I just can't quite remember. But anyhow, getting back to the laser, this machine gets dropped off. Oh, excuse me. In the later 80s, my father worked for Westinghouse, and the Spectra 8310 model water jet cutting machine was also part of the Trident nuclear submarine program. Whether that's classified information or not, I don't know. But the water jet cutting machine was like really state-of-the-art technology that was debuting, and I can remember them cutting apples and stuff like that precisely with water, high-speed, high-pressure water. So fast forward to the future, it's 2008, and this machine shows up, and the Spectre 8310 is now not a water jet machine, but a plasma cutter. And it's on a large scale, and the many components that made it up, I didn't never see the thing operate or anything. And mind you, I was told there was two of them. I didn't see it ever operate, but if you could compare the scale of a small pen laser the size of your pinky as opposed to a giant industrial, bigger than commercial grade laser with components that are giant, like giant tubes of red glass that are 4 inches around, that's fucking huge. And I know this to be something my father had a part of because I've seen college paperwork that had his studies about blending aluminum gases and what degrees of variance of electricity and whatnot. And I know the entire thing sounds maniacal, and unfortunately I've lost quite a bit of the paperwork that was his college stuff, but I've tried to hold on to some. This summer was really horrible. One of the people that my dad used to play volleyball with, that I swam with, Scott Myers, ran me over with a Kia car after I thought he had a female in his trunk. And the whole thing just seems so intense, and I do believe it's related to the Trump administration investigation, and just not quite sure where to go with this. I've contacted the FBI and they don't seem to care. I also have been arrested by Citrus Heights police regarding this matter for calling them, and I could really use some help. I'm going to put some faith in our government and pray that even if they drop the ball, that mankind will do the right thing and find this machine and disable it as soon as possible. I have reasonable suspicion that Scott Myers had something to do with me losing my children to CPS. Whether that be keep me hooked on street medicines after being sick from a doctor's medicine, or just keep me out of the game. A lot of times it's felt like I've been kind of Eric Snowden, but without the information. You know, if you think of the name Eric Snowden, you think of the last name, it's basically like I've been locked in from any contact with people and reality, and there's been like a lot of gaslighting and steam, I'm not quite sure, but gaslighting and whatnot, as well as like financial sequestering because they don't want me to talk. I didn't have a phone for almost 4 months. And if you can imagine trying to get to a place where it's safe enough to talk, not to mention, hopefully the network hasn't been compromised that you're using. It's very intense, and I'm not a spy. I'm not into espionage. I'm a heavy-duty stoner, and I really just want nothing but peace to the world from all mankind. I heard rumors that there was another second machine, and I do believe that there is a mine shaft under my home. I know that I hear people shooting adult videos and whatnot, and I just haven't been able to get downstairs. My house doesn't have a basement, but I live at 7451 Watchtower Way, Citrus Heights, California, 95610. And I do believe that the elevation changes in my backyard have shown very obvious evidence that there are sinkholes, and they could lead to mine shafts. I do feel that I'm a little bit of a psychic, whether it be from supernatural things that have happened to me on Earth, or whether it be the lineage of having Irish in my blood. I feel that there's chasms under the home, and this summer I was literally packing bags and running for my life because I thought there was like a curfew or evacuation of the city, and not only I was terrified, but my pit bull was shaking with sheer terror, and I'd packed a to-go bag to run basically for my life towards the hills without a car. The cracks and elevation changes that I do believe that I've seen in the mountains are very real, and there's very obvious crack that's really big at Walmart on Lead Hill Boulevard in Roseville, California. Furthermore, I do think there's good chance that Daryl Scott Patterson could have had something to do with the sinkhole in Grass Valley. And furthermore, I do believe that he is the one that has stolen my handgun and rifles, and if they were his when he died, and then he died, they turned mine and they got registered to me. And I don't have a single weapon. I could really use something for some protection, or somebody I could trust, and that's definitely not the police of Citrus Heights. And if there's any way that any potential police involvement has to happen, that we use Sacramento Sheriff, please. I spoke with one the other day, and I just the reasonable the the respectable listening skills that the sheriff used for me was just amazing. And I'm sure there's other parts of the story that I have left out, but if you could please contact me at 916-969-2883. Thank you.